Welcome to part 3 of our video presentation on chapter 1. In this part, we will talk about the so-called project management framework. Project management framework is one way to explain the essence of project management. What this framework tells you, it tells you the following. A project manager needs to have knowledge and practical skills in each of the following core functions, facilitating function in integration management. He or she also needs to have a good understanding of stakeholders, their needs and expectations. And also he or she needs to have a good understanding of various tools. Here we're talking about various reports, various charts, various statistical techniques for quality control, all kinds of tools and techniques that are used in project management. And what you see here is that overall understanding of the enterprise, how his or her project aligns with other projects being carried out at an organization, and how his project contributes to the overall success of an enterprise. So once again, a project manager needs to have knowledge and skills in all of these areas. Now, some of the knowledge is related to simple concepts, ideas, best practices, but there's another category of knowledge that is more on the practical side. It's knowledge of specific processes that need to be carried out within each of those areas. So let's talk about each of those areas briefly. Now, the first area is stakeholders' needs and expectations. Who is a stakeholder? Well, stakeholders are people somehow involved or affected by project activities. So stakeholders of a particular project may include the project sponsor. Typically, it's a senior executive who is responsible for approving a particular project, allocating funds and other resources to this project. The project manager is also an important stakeholder, the project team members, support staff, let's say somebody who works at the warehouse or somebody who is an administrative assistant to a particular stakeholder that is somehow involved with the project. Customers, meaning, the customers of the company that will be affected by this project. Users, meaning the people who will end up using the outcome of this project. Let's say you develop an information system as a result of a particular project, and users will be using it. Suppliers, meaning organizations that supply something to your organization, and also opponents to the project. I mean, you also need to keep an eye on those stakeholders who oppose your project for various reasons. In fact, it's a good idea to always keep an eye on the stakeholders who oppose your project. It's even better if you can somehow manage to make your opponents your allies. One way to do it is to get them on board, to show them respect by saying that their opinion counts and you need them on the project steering committee because of their expertise. Once you get them on board, once you get them involved in project management and project planning, then your project becomes their baby. It becomes a reflection on their abilities and their reputation as well. If that happens, if you're successful at that, then they will actually try to contribute to a project to make sure it's successful, because that will also positively contribute to them, to their reputation. So try to make your opponents your allies. And then we have the following core functions. Now, the reason they're called core functions is that they're intimately related to project management as a profession. Okay. Now, I wouldn't say that facilitating function is somewhat less important. They are just not immediately related to project management. They're related to general management, general people skills. So let's talk about core functions first. Scope management, being able to understand and communicate to other team members what needs to be done. That's what we mean by scope. And also being rigorous and being methodical about defending the scope. In other words, if somebody wants to change the scope, there needs to be a formal mechanism for making those kind of requests. You shouldn't try to please everybody by doing everything that people request you to do. That's the surest way to set your project on a path of failure. You should always there should be a formal mechanism for evaluating requests that come to you, requests in terms of changing scope, and also ignoring those requests. I mean, if this request will make your scope go out of control, where you need a lot of money and a lot of time to accomplish that, or it just the project becomes overly complex, then you need to have a formal mechanism for rejecting those scope change requests. Time management, managing your own time, managing the time of your team members, overall making sure that your project is proceeding in accordance to the agreed upon timeline, a very important skill. Cost management, making sure that your project is within the budget, another important skill. not wasting money, making sure that the budgeting plans that you have are adequate. You're not underestimating the amount of money that you will spend, because if you keep underestimating, then stakeholders who are sponsoring your project will become very upset. You promised that it will cost $1 million, you ended up spending $2 million. Quality management, making sure that the most important goal of quality management is making sure that the overall outcome of your project, such as a service or an information system or a new network, adheres to the quality standards. Quality is everybody's problem. Everybody needs to be concerned about quality. Everybody needs to be indoctrinated in quality. A lot of the things that you do throughout the duration of the project that you think may not be related to quality, such as team communication, all of those things are actually related to quality, and they impact the way a particular product is built, and most importantly, whether this product meets expectations of end users or clients for whom you build your product as a result of your project. So then you have facilitating functions, human resource management, being able to recruit people, being able to motivate them, being able to develop them. I would say it's the most important skill of a project manager, because if you have the right people working under you, you'll get things done. You will overcome challenges related to scope, time, and cost and quality. But if you have the wrong people working for you, meaning people who are not qualified, people who are not motivated to accomplish their task, then you will have problems with all other areas. Communication management, facilitating communication among team members, among other stakeholders, to make sure they know what's happening with your project, to make sure that they share information that is relevant for other stakeholders, to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to voice his or her concerns in relation to a project. This is also very important. It's an important skill to communicate and also to facilitate communication throughout the project. Risk management, meaning being able to understand all the things that can happen with the project, all the things that can go wrong, and being prepared for it. Procurement management, if you're building a particular information technology product or telecommunications, if you're working on a telecommunications projects, you will end up procuring a lot of components, hardware, software, networking equipment. So it's also a skill, signing contracts, finding suppliers, negotiating contracts, maintaining a good relationships with your suppliers. It's also an important area of skills. Now, finally, some people would say that the most important skill in project management, or the most important area, is project integration management. What this area means, it means a project manager, he's like a facilitator or intermediary. He's standing in between all stakeholders, all issues, all processes, and he's trying to integrate, to communicate, to make sure everything is working together as one big, well-oiled machine. That also tells you that, you see, a project manager, he's not somebody who is looking over everybody's shoulder and telling people what to do. In fact, a project manager may not be an expert in all areas, like in budgeting, in quality management, in software development, and risk management. However, he's the one who ensures communication, interaction among different team members, making sure that everybody has what he or she needs to accomplish his goal. So it's more, the role of a project manager is more of that of a facilitator, of an assistant to everybody, rather than somebody who's bossing everybody around and telling people what to do. Tools and techniques. There are a lot of tools and techniques used in project management. This course is largely about those tools and techniques. I view this course as a survey of all kinds of ideas, concepts, assumptions, tools, approaches used in project management. Nowadays, a lot of the time, project managers, they use one big piece of software, such as Microsoft Project, to manage all kinds of activities within a project. So typically, being knowledgeable in tools and techniques nowadays typically assumes that you're knowledgeable in a particular software package used in project management. Finally, the overall understanding of the enterprise. You need to understand that your project will be supported and your project will be successful only if it contributes to the overall success of an enterprise. If your project does not contribute to the overall success of an enterprise, it may not be approved in the first place, right? But if it is supporting major goals of your enterprise, then it will get approved. You'll get funds and other resources assigned to it. I remember in my former organization, we had those meetings where projects were pitched for the next year, for the next planning cycle. And after spending several years in my organization, I knew which projects will get approved. Okay, because I knew what the main goals of the enterprise are, and of the organization are, and I'm talking about real goals, not declared goals, right? So I always had this feeling like if one project doesn't seem to be aligned with those goals, there's no way it will ever get approved. And sometimes I had this feeling that this project seems to be supportive of what top management wants, and therefore it will get approved, it will receive funding, it will be formally initiated. So it's very important to understand those organizational issues as well, because you as a project manager, you are not working in isolation. You are part of the overall organization, and everything that you do needs to be aligned with organizational goals. Yeah, and just this is a summary of what we discussed, just to emphasize this point. All knowledge areas are important. Just because something is called a facilitating area does not mean it's somehow less important area. All those areas that we discussed here in this framework are important for ensuring success of a project. So that completes part 3 of chapter 1. Thank you for listening.